Now it's time for Celebrity Corner.
Oh my God.
Time now for the Odd Couple Celebrity Corner.
All right, it is a pleasure to welcome in this dude's become a superstar. He's the co-host of The Breakfast Club on iHeartRadio. Now he's the author of his second book. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's his second book. His first one hit the New York Times bestsellers list just a year within the last 2 years, called Black Privilege. You can follow him on Twitter at See the THA God. See the God. Charlamagne, he knows I call him Charlamagne. That's my man, but
I call him Charlamagne Tha God.
The God. Yo, what's happening, brother, man? It's great to have you on the Odd Couple.
Chris, Rob, thank you. What's happening? What's going on?
We
all
great,
good,
man. We great.
Yes.
And look, you stay busy. We all know how busy you are with your show. It's one of the most popular shows in the country, The Breakfast Club. I mentioned your best-selling book that recently came out. Now you got another book called Shook Ones, Anxiety Playing Tricks on Me. Tell us about this book, man. It looks like it's really interesting.
Well, I put out my first book, Black Privilege, last April in 2017. And, when you put out a book and it's on the New York Times bestseller list for 7 weeks in a row, your book publishers automatically are like, yo, when you going to give us another book? We'd love to get another book from you, but, I don't really just do things just to do them. And, they'll wave that check in front of you, but I don't really do things for a check. So I just wanted to wait. I wanted to wait until I really had something to say. And I didn't know when that was going to be. But I was on vacation last year, and I was just looking at my family and my friends, and I had, like, this real moment of, like, peace. And I hadn't felt like that in a long time. Like, no worries, no anxiety, no panic attacks, no nothing. And I was like, man, how can I feel like this all the time? And I had been flirting with the idea of therapy for a few years. And so finally my wife was like, yo, just go to therapy. So I started going to therapy. And when I was going to therapy, I was just keeping notes of things that give me anxiety now, things that have historically given me anxiety. Then I started getting to the root of trauma from things that happened to me when I was younger and, dealing with my PTSD. And I just had all of these different notes, and these notes just became these pages of this book. And I didn't even know if it was a book that the publishers would want to do. I just was like, look, man, I would love to write about my anxiety and going to therapy to deal with it. And that's what I did. And then it turned into just this book about mental health. And then my book publishers had the idea of bringing in a therapist to actually, give these clinical correlations to the things that I was describing, because I was trying to translate what my therapist was telling me, but I realized that the things my therapist was telling me was just giving me a better understanding of my feelings, and I was able to express them more. But when it came to giving this actual clinical expertise, I definitely didn't have that. So it was good that I brought in my man, Dr. Ish Major.
Well, tell me about you mentioned cultural PTSD. Do you need a penicillin shot to cure that, or just help me out with that?
Nah, I don't take any medication. I just do therapy every week, because I understand what the source of my PTSD is. I mean, one thing, man, when you turn 40, like I'm 40 years old now, when you grow up in a certain environment, when you grow up in the hood, a lot of the things that we normalize in the hood aren't normal. But you don't really realize that until you have totally removed yourself from those circumstances altogether, and you kind of looking back at the hood like, yo, these motherfuckers are crazy. but we understand why they're crazy, because of the environment, because of the conditions. So it's just like when you're getting a gun pulled on you when you 17 years old, or you're getting jumped, or you getting into fights, you're gonna have some form of PTSD. Like, it's like we literally was going to war every day, not going to war like, the veterans that protect our country, but we were, in a struggle every day trying to survive. So you're going to have some type of PTSD. Not to mention, even as an adult, I've had people try to fight me in front of the radio station. I've been at the ATM machine in New York City, and a guy coming in and swing on me. So your head is always on a swivel. That's just the way it is.
Are you serious? Like swinging at you at an ATM, just trying to rob you, or did he know you and didn't like you?
I don't know.
Okay.
That was the second time it happened. The first time it happened, these guys tried to jump me in front of the station. They were just looking for a moment. You know, they had their video cameras out.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That was all over World Star and stuff like that. But the second time, this dude didn't say anything. He just walked up to me, started swinging. And
wow.
I mean, that was some years ago. That was about 4 or 5 years ago. But still, it happened. So that never leaves you, or it hasn't left me yet.
You're not a rapper, but obviously you're very much entrenched in the hip hop industry. The title Shook One, obviously, from Mobb Deep, Anxiety Playing Tricks on Me, from Scarface and the Ghetto Boys. Hip hop, you know it, Charlamagne, like it's a lot of machismo, a lot of fronting, a lot of, ultra, I don't know how to describe masculinity, right? Over the top masculinity. How much of that do you think is a defense mechanism, and even related to like a lot of the things you're talking about, the anxiety, brothers going through a lot of the things that you went through growing up? All
of it. I mean, that's why I named the book Shook One, because, Shook One is the Mobb Deep song. And in the song, Prodigy, rest in peace, in the hook, he says, there's no such thing as halfway crooks. They shook, and they're like, yo, you're not a crook, son. You a shook one. And that's crazy to me, because it's almost like they were glorifying being a crook. Like, yo, you ain't a crook, son. You a shook one. Like, you scared. You should be scared to live that lifestyle. Right. You know? And growing up in the hood, like, you couldn't be perceived as a shook one. You couldn't be perceived as, the P word, that the slang term for vagina. You couldn't be that. You couldn't be considered soft. You had to have your chest out. Like, you couldn't walk around like Donald Glover. And when I was growing up in the 90s, you had to be Tupac.
Right.
So, a lot of that was just a defense mechanism and, a survival tactic, because once people know that you are considered soft, you food in the hood. And the wolves come in to eat. You mentioned Donald Glover. Do you think it's changing in hip-hop at all, where you don't have to put up this front like you the baddest dude on the planet, or is that still there? Oh, no, it changed a long time ago. It actually changed, when Kanye West hit the scene. And, I'm a big believer in signs. I pay attention to the things that the universe shows me. And I remember when 50 Cent was coming out with an album and Kanye West was coming out with an album, and they were going head-to-head, coming out on the same day to see who could sell the most records, and they were doing appearances together and everything. And, 50 was the hardcore gangster hood dude, celebrating all the criminal activities in the hood. Kanye was the backpacker who tried to go to school, dropped out, who loved his mom, who was emotional. And Kanye came out and sold a significant amount of more records than 50. And that's when the tide changed. And, Kanye came out with 808 and Heartbreaks, and that kind of bred the Drakes and the Chance the Rappers and the Kid Cudis and all of those, Kendrick Lamars and J. Cole's, all of those guys who aren't afraid to be themselves. So it definitely changed a long time ago. I mean, honestly, I would have came out with this book anyway, because I don't care, because I'm a 40-year-old man who expresses myself at all times. But it's kind of like it made it very easy, to come out with this book, because people realize how dangerous toxic masculinity is. They realize how dangerous, pretending to be hard all the time is, which is so weird to me, because even when I was growing up, my dad used to always tell me all the hard dudes he know were dead or in jail.
Right. Yeah, that's a true statement right there.
Yeah, it's not like it's new information. Right. It's just that finally now people are, most of us are getting it. I can't say everybody, but most of us are getting it.
What about the, speaking, you brought up Kanye, you even mentioned Drake. They got like a little beef going on. Is this real or suitable for framing because they need some publicity? What's going on there?
I think it's real, but I think it's corny on Kanye West's part. I think Kanye West, is going through like a midlife crisis. Kanye's like 40-plus years old, and I don't think that he can accept the fact that he's not the hottest guy musically in the culture or the hottest guy in the culture anymore. And I think that those guys like Drake, who used to look up to him, sometimes, your sons, they grow up to be better than you. And that's the way it should be, right? Like, we should hope every generation is better than us. And, Drake is, like, really big right now. But Kanye's still Kanye. But when I saw that Twitter rant yesterday, it really just looked like a fragile ego that was just jealous and envious of what this new generation is doing. Like, it just seemed very, 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 very petty to me. And I definitely didn't like the fact that when he was in the White House, he was dismissing his mental health issues, and he was saying that he's not bipolar, he got misdiagnosed, it was sleep deprivation. But yesterday on Twitter, he was kind of weaponizing weaponizing mental illness, saying that Drake picks on people with mental illness and the way what the things Drake is doing is not good for his mental health. And I'm like, you just denied you had any issues when you were sitting in front of Trump. But now you on Twitter weaponizing it to make Drake look bad. And I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Drake either, but I just didn't appreciate that. I just thought that was lame.
Charlamagne, last question. How much, and maybe you learned in therapy, like how much does social media play into this? And if a person does suffer from whether it's some form of mental illness or just anxiety, how much can social media really be a problem for that person?
Oh my God, it's the absolute worst.
Right.
I got a whole chapter on it in the book, you know, and it's called FOMO, because that's what social media does. It gives you this fear of missing out, but we don't realize that we're in verbally abusive relationships with social media. Like literally, like if you was at your job every day or you was going home every day to somebody who was talking to you the way these people talk to you on social media, you wouldn't put up with it. But for whatever reason, we go to our Instagrams, we go to our Twitters, and we read these comments of people bashing us all day long and telling us how much we suck. And, yo, man, I don't care how strong you are, how powerful your mind is. Eventually, that stuff is going to get to you. It's going to weigh on you. You start believing some of it. Like, you start questioning yourself. So I don't think social media is good for your mental health at all. That's why I just think that sometimes we got to disconnect. And, you know, for the amount of time that you spend on social media, you know, reading comments about yourself and going back and forth with other people, you could be reading a book, or you could be writing down things that you're grateful for, or you could be reading daily affirmations. You could be giving yourself a lot of positive reinforcement instead of getting all of this negative energy that's coming from social media.
You know what's crazy is when you say that, I've never been one to struggle with people, you know, being a newspaper columnist and people always pushing back on stuff that I've written and said over the years. But I always go back to when I was a kid, 9 years old or 8 years old. My mom said to me, I came home one day and I said, you know, they don't like me at school, or, you know, that kind of thing. You have that moment. And she just looked at me and she said, everybody didn't like Jesus Christ either, so you'll be all right. And then from that day on, it really didn't bother me what people thought.
No, you're absolutely right, but Jesus ain't had no Twitter.
No, I know you did. You're right about that. You're right.
I don't think it's natural. I don't think it's natural for tens of thousands of people to be coming at you every day.
No, I hear you.
Like we're not even. I don't even think human beings are supposed to interact like that.
I don't think we built for that. You're right, and I think you have to know the type of person you are, Charlamagne. Like some people, like Michael Jordan, was notorious for being able to, you know, use fuel criticism from others, right? People selling him short and all that. But some people, like I look at a Kevin Durant who really gets bothered by what people say about him, right, or tweet about him or whatever. And you just have to know the type of person you are. If you can't handle that, then don't go on there. You know what I'm saying? And
that's very true. And that's what I always say. Like, to me, it's like first of all, you have to be secure with who you are, and you have to know the truth about yourself. And honestly, the truth about you knowing the truth about yourself should be enough. It shouldn't matter what other people say. If 100 people are lying about you on social media, cool. As long as you know the truth about yourself, that's all that should matter. You got to sit around and convince nobody about the truth. The truth don't need no defense. All it needs is witnesses.
Well, Charlamagne,
thanks so much.
Great, man.
Appreciate you.
Great knowledge. We appreciate it. I really want to get into this book. It's called Shook One, Anxiety Playing Tricks on Me. Charlamagne Tha God.
Chris, thank you.
Yes.
All right, brother.
Merry Christmas.